that Barack Obama, when he left the White House, left a letter for Trump, for his successor, and in that letter stated that the greatest threat to world peace Barack Obama viewed, was not Russia or China. He said it was North Korea. And so Trump was surprised when he heard this and said, what is the issue? And he said, well, they are conducting the tests, they are launching missiles, they are enriching uranium, they are not complying with any measures, legal, diplomatic, social. And what President Trump said was, I will talk with him. I will go with him, I'll meet with him, speak with him, and achieve a diplomatic parity, stability through direct communication. That was very successful. We saw the missile test stop, we saw nuclear testing stop, and the minute that Trump left and Biden returned, it all came back because the CCP uses North Korea as a tool. They are the dog on the chain for the CCP. That whenever CCP needs a threat, needs some aggression, they pull back. And North Korea, of course, threatening to Japan, launching missiles, sending shots over. And as a Navy officer, of course, that's something that I tracked very, very frequently when I was serving for ballistic missile defense, the Aegis system, etc. That's why this is also important and very real in the Asia-Pacific theater. But it's also a situation where if we understand that there are only two possibilities forward. You can either declare war on North Korea or you can have diplomacy with them. You cannot have one or the other.
いや、全くその通りです。それでじゃあ、いよいよもうアジアの中心、これは中国に赴任されていた関係で、中国の情報にも非常にジャックさん通じておられると思うんですけれども、中国のこれからの出方についてちょっと今からお尋ねしたいと思います。まず、日本にとってですね、あと米軍の基地も近い関係で、みんな注目しているのが、中国は台湾にこれから何らかの形で侵攻するのかどうかというところについてみんなが注目しています。この中国台湾問題についてジャックさんの見解を聞かせてください。
Of course. So to understand where China is going, we must look to China's history because this is very indicative of their path forward. So in recent Chinese history, of course, we remember the situation with Hong Kong. Hong Kong, CCP promised 50 years after the turnover, it would not be influenced by the mainland. One country, two systems, right? 一国两制 in Mandarin. And of course, that lasted maybe 30 years. And of course, it was completely done away with in 2019. And then later with the pandemic, they completely wiped out basically all of Hong Kong's autonomy. They want to do the same thing in Taiwan. As far as the larger question you asked about what is China's overall strategy, again, looking to the history of China, the phrase 中国 in Mandarin, of course, the Central Kingdom. They want to be restored to what they believe is their rightful status in Asia as the great empire, the center of the world, the center of all commerce, diplomacy, military strategy will all flow through Beijing. And of course, in that situation, that means North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong will all be underneath the great power of China. This is what they want. And this is the path that they are attempting to achieve. And so when it comes to Taiwan, I do believe that they will strike when the moment is necessary. Their strategy with Hong Kong is something that we can look at to understand their strategy with Taiwan, because they would prefer to achieve assimilation with Taiwan. They want Taiwan to peacefully return to the motherland, Dalu, and they want to focus on economic and social ties. However, if they are threatened, if they feel this escalation, as I was talking about before with Ukraine and Russia, if they feel escalation, what they would do, and I think that if there is a timetable for this, it has been accelerated because of the actions of the Biden administration, that the first thing would be a naval blockade of Taiwan. And instead of attacking the island directly, what they would attempt to do is a siege tactic. So no supplies can go, no food, no water, starve out the island as much as possible, completely cut them off from the outside world. And then if United States, Japan, etc., wants to respond, then they would commit to a greater conflict, basically to see who would strike first. And if Xi Jinping feels threatened, if he feels as though he can get away with it, he's going to do this.
仮に台湾に対して中国が軍事侵攻した場合、バイデン政権のアメリカはどういう対応すると思いますか？その直接的に軍事支援をするのか、あるいはもう後方支援、金銭とか武器の支援だけになろうとするのか、アメリカ軍の介入の仕方についてどうなるだろうかっていう予測を教えてください。
I think it depends on what type of attack. If it was a full-on attack on Taiwan, I do believe that the United States, the Seventh Fleet out of Yokosuka, where I worked and served when I was in the Navy, I do think that there would be an immediate response. I believe that, of course, there is a treaty, which was signed, the mutual defense between U.S. and Taiwan, and you would see a naval response, I think, immediately. It would depend on the nature of the strike. If it was missile strikes, perhaps the United States would provide ballistic missile defense. If it was a full-on invasion, though, let's go to the worst case scenario. So in the military, you always have to say what is the most likely scenario, what is the most dangerous scenario. Most likely, I said before, I think is blockade, maybe missile strikes on key infrastructure, very similar to what Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine. Energy systems, bridges, hydroelectric plants, dams, railroad, these type of attacks, which could also be conducted by cyber as well, would be something that China would be conducting on Taiwan. In a most dangerous scenario of a full-on invasion, like we're seeing in Ukraine, I think that Biden would respond, but I do think there'd be a lot of people in America that, because of their influence with CCP money, because of their influence with Chinese money, they would say, we can send some funding, we can help out the aid, but really Taiwan is not our problem, and really it's part of China anyway, so we should just let them have it. And if I can add, if that is the greatest influence point, which it is the greatest influence point from CCP to all of these countries, the best way then is to prevent anything like this happening by a decoupling of the Western economies from China. So if you decouple economically, it's a form of economic warfare. President Trump has laid this out: taxation, tariffs, and then recapturing supply chains, bringing them back to the United States, which of course serves the dual purpose of defunding the CCP, but also revitalizing America and revitalizing national manufacturing in every country that has become reliant on this. It would serve a purpose of peace, and it would serve a purpose of prosperity.
いや、全くおっしゃる通りですね。だから、バイデンのアメリカなのか、トランプのアメリカなのかでも全然違ってくるなということはすごく思うんですけれども、最後に僕の方から聞きたいのはですね、中国はこれからもより覇権を目指して強くなっていくのか、あるいはそうなる前に内部崩壊していくと思うか、中国の未来についてどんなふうに予測されておられますか？
It requires a two-track response. The first track is an explanation. And I understand the appeal of China. People want to move their supply chains there, whether it's pharmaceutical manufacturing, whether it's even tech to some extent, because it's cheaper. And cheaper products are always going to create a bigger bottom line for whatever industry you're involved in, whether you're going from, antibiotic precursors, or you're just on Alibaba and you're going to Yiwu for your products. It is always going to be cheaper, obviously. But people must be educated to understand the malign influence of CCP leadership, as well as the fact that China is, of course, flooding the world and flooding the West, fentanyl, TikTok, these algorithms that are designed to brainwash children and influence them in very negative ways, and as well as undermining national manufacturing base. So number one is education, but then number two, you must create pride in your own national manufacturing again. I can remember when I was younger, you would always take pride to say, I drive a American car. I drive, I purchased the products in America. Though I do have to admit, my very first car was Toyota. So I'll give you credit there. But we must return our countries. But that's competition, and competition is good. But we must return to that level of understanding national manufacturing. And this is going to require a new way of thinking about politics, where money and GDP and economic efficiency is not always put first, but we have to remember that we are countries of people, and that the people in our countries matter more than any one company or any one economic measure. That if the health of the people is not put primary, then of course we will continue, number one, to see our populations lag behind. We'll see birth rates decrease. We'll see wealth decline. We'll see home ownership decline. And then secondly, what will rise will be the CCP. There is a reason that Chicago and Detroit and the Midwest of the United States, it looks in complete disarray. But then if you go to Shanghai, if you go to Shenzhen, if you go to any of these cities throughout China, they are glittering metropolises, and everything is seems brand new as the Shanghai subway, and is because the flow of Western capital to China, and that is what must stop.
そのあなたがおっしゃる2つの対策を実現するためにも提案してくださった本当にインターナショナル CPAC をバーッと世界中で広げていって、グローバリズムや中国や共産党の脅威についてしっかりと多くの人たちに草の根で知ってもらうことがすごく大事だというふうに改めて思いました。今年 CPAC ジャパンあるんで招待するんでぜひ来てくださいね。
We are an international alliance of nationalism.
Okay, じゃあ
I accept.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll start doing it again. Our soldiers are very special. When a wonderful town in Ohio has difficulty, we are going to take care of that town.